shopgear.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
You're listening to the Sabrecast, brought to you by Better Live Than Dead. And now your hosts, Brayton Wilson and Ryan Wolfe.
We welcome you to the Sabrecast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. Season 2, Episode 2. We're going to call this one Ristolainen Watch. We need like a crazy audio file right there, like Ristolainen Watch. But before we introduce ourselves here on the podcast today, you can hear this podcast, BetterLiveThanDead.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you listen to a podcast. I can promise you get this podcast. If not, tweet at the JC Money, tell him he sucks, tell him I sent you. Perfect. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD, and joining me on the computer today, Anthony Sciandra at Sciandra Sports. That's Sciandra Sports. And I didn't even mention a coworker over at Die by the Blade. Anthony, how you doing this very, very cold Saturday morning?
Yeah, it is uncharacteristically cold this morning, but I'm doing pretty good, buddy. Just waiting for the off season to end. We've got less than a month till preseason hockey starts, so that's exciting. How about yourself, bud? You enjoying the waning days of summer? It's
hard to believe, honestly. I mean, I walked outside this morning. My wife was up to go to work, so I walk outside to go to Dunkin' to grab a coffee quick, and I was like, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was October. But I had to go dig through my pile of hoodies that are. I have a couple of zip-ups on my door in my office. So I'm like I got to find the warmest one because I'm freezing. But it's nice. It's a good feel because you know what? We're going to talk about hockey this morning. So it feels kind of like early hockey season weather outside. And really, you mentioned it. Training camp's right around the corner. It's as of recording time, 8:43 a.m. on Saturday, August 24th. So we are literally a few weeks away from training camp beginning, first games happening. And then after that, next thing you know, it's going to be the regular season. So hockey is right there. I mean, I think for me, when it comes to hockey being ready, for me, I kind of take it as once football starts, then it's time to focus on hockey. Because, I mean, I know some people really love football and get into it, but for me, I'm like, okay, cool, football starts, so when's hockey starting? Like, I enjoy football, don't get me wrong.
Right.
I like fantasy football. Trusted Podcast is a lot of fun, but I know once football starts, it's almost hockey season, and that gets me pretty amped up.
Yeah, no, for sure. I like football. I mean, obviously, I follow it pretty closely. I used to write about it. People have asked me, why don't you write about football anymore? And I think it was because I realized I'll never understand it on the same level I do with hockey, or I'll never care about it the same level to the same amount, if that makes any sense. So I just felt like I was kind of going through the motions on it and not really going in depth. But yeah, my wife thinks I'm crazy, but there's that hockey smell in the air on mornings like this. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely.
Like that,
I walk out
morning of a big game smell.
I walk out and I think to myself, it's about the right temperature. I could throw on one of my Sabre sweaters and just jump outside and be good to go. It's perfect for that. But I get you. I get you. I feel the same way with football, where like I do when we do Trust the Podcast, I feel very comfortable. Kind of, I have my niche. You got to find your niche with that stuff, where you're like, I'll never be as good as Cover One because I can't sit down and watch and go, oh yeah, they're doing whatever, and this is what's going to happen. I'm by no means that good. I have no problem admitting that, but you find your niche, your role, you play it well, and that's why we're here today. We know our role, we're playing it well. We're going to talk about some Sabre stuff. We're going to talk about, first off, we got to mention those 50th anniversary jerseys. We were scared. I was scared. I don't know about you, Anthony. I was pretty terrified when the first reports came out of what it was going to look like and what it's going to be. I'm like, oh boy, this is Turd Burger version 2.0. Then they released the jerseys, and boy, are they beautiful.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love them. I'm not going to say who it was, but someone on Twitter kind of tipped me off maybe a month in advance as to what they'd look like, and kind of gave me, an example of something similar, right? And I was like, oh, like that's brutal, right? It's like that, and that was like peak royal blue rage for everybody, because nobody was aware or even kind of like had indicated that there was that maybe a rule in place, right, with Adidas where they couldn't change it this year, and whatever the case may be on that, nobody was aware of it, right? So it was just sheer rage from everybody. And then started to leak through like, yeah, it's going to be all white with white pants. And everyone's like, oh God, that's going to be so bad. But no, it's gorgeous. And you know, it actually, I might take heat for this, but I think that design looks better with navy than it would with royal. And
I think so.
Like,
I think so.
Yeah. And that detail on the Buffalo, I hope they keep that on their uniforms next season when they do switch to royal. Even if they put, make it white again, that like detailing on the top half of that Buffalo is so like intricate and gorgeous. I think they did a really nice job.
I think Eric Bottomer, who works for Adidas, he's a good follow on Twitter. He's from Buffalo. He worked on the jersey. I'll have to get him on the podcast sometime and see if we can squeeze some information out of him. But it really seems like with how the Sabres mentioned it, it was they're wearing the navy pants. I mean, there's no way they can wear white pants. It would look absurd, absolutely absurd. But the way that they mentioned it, if I'm not mistaken, they said something along the lines of it was kind of their final ode to the Navy. So, I mean, they did mention too the one thing that we haven't said yet. The Sabres did mention, and you just mentioned it, Anthony, the rule that was in place that some people kind of knew about, but most people, if you don't pay attention to the intricate details of contractual obligations between the league and Adidas, which I don't blame you if you don't know, you have to wear a specific jersey for a specific amount of years, and then you can change it. It's like the LeBron James thing in the NBA where LeBron said, hey, I'm going to change my number to 6 and give Anthony Davis 23. And then Nike goes, yeah, not so fast. We have all of these number 6 or number 23 LeBron James jerseys that we can't do anything with. And we're still producing them. So no, you're not changing your number till next year. So it's very much a business thing, not so much an NHL rule, but more or less we don't want to get screwed and have all of this inventory of jerseys that we have to, mark down or whatever it may be. But I think Eric Bottomer over on Twitter to go back on and get back on track there. He had mentioned that I believe the logo was from when the team first started. They gave season ticket holders or people, whoever, I can't remember exactly, actual Sabres with that logo on it. So it's like an ode to the original Buffalo Sabres from the 1970s. But I really wonder, with the amount of work that they put into that and how much pride they've taken in that, if that becomes the Buffalo Sabres primary logo permanently, I don't think you're going to see a lot of people upset about it because it does look beautiful. The detail is incredible. Also, seeing the mock-ups on Twitter, because there's one thing that Buffalo Sabres fans do well. They've got a lot of very good creative graphic designers. And it is incredible to watch. Once that jersey, once the 50th anniversary jersey came out, I swear I saw maybe 5 or 6 mock-ups of the royal blue and white home and road jerseys that people think they might look like next year. So I think it'd be a good look for the Sabres to keep it. And I apologize to my wife, but I may have to buy one of those 50th anniversary jerseys because they are nice.
Yeah, I made a decree on Twitter, and I kind of want to do it anyway, but I said if Erod gets signed for more than 2 years, I would get his jersey for the 50th, but only 1 year for Mr. Rodriguez, so I may or may not. I might just go blank, but yeah, no, I mean, they did a really nice job, and like you said, they've added some nice people on the design end, Dylan Nowak being one of them. He's one of my favorite people on Twitter, and man, he was just talented for so long before, PSC recognized him and he got the job over there. So congrats to him. And I'm sure, he'll make that even better than it is. But yeah, their graphic team has really improved.
Now, speaking of jerseys and buying jerseys, I can transition this into 3 big things real easily. The last jersey that I bought was a Rasmus Ristolainen jersey before he was notably bad. Then he became very bad. This was like, I would say probably 4 years ago at this point that I bought a jersey. And I was burned. So I said, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it. I cannot do it. But that being said, speaking of Rasmus Ristolainen, it's Ristolainen watch. Reports out of Finland. Those reports out of Finland, I'll tell you what, this offseason, I've learned that there's a thing called MTV Sports. And I was very confused because I'm like, okay, is there like a shock jock? Like when they have the old school MTV? Is there just some guy in Finland?
With Carson Daly.
Yeah, exactly. Rumors. Like Total Request Live. Rasmus Ristolainen requests to be traded. Like that would be great. Now, and then like coming up next, NSYNC tearing up my heart or whatever, But reports out of Finland's MTV Sports have Ristolainen asking to be dealt from the Buffalo Sabres. The precise quote was, quote, "I cannot say anything other than the fact that on the 12th of September, I will be at one of the NHL team's training camps." So, Anthony, I must ask you, is it finally time to pack his bags and say goodbye to Rasmus Ristolainen?
I think it has been, and you know, we discussed it a little bit on the podcast, the Beyond the Blade podcast last week. You know, Chad seemed to feel like, you know, through information he was getting that is kind of a 70-30, 70 being he wouldn't be here. It's felt that way for a while, right? And we're getting into late August here, and I think everyone's mantra when the offseason started was, you know, don't worry that there hasn't been a deal yet. You know, Skinner was traded the first week of August. Like, it's all good. And now it's the third week of August, and everyone's kind of like, wait, are we really going to go into the year with 12 defensemen? Something's got to give. It definitely, I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And Botterill had that weird response at the 50th anniversary, you know, party or whatever it was last weekend. When asked about it, you know what I mean? It was kind of like, I'm not surprised. When someone asked him, what, you know, are you surprised that Ristolainen asked for a trade, or are you surprised to hear this? And he's basically just like, no, I'm not. So that was a little weird, right? So yeah, it seems like something is going on behind the scenes, whether or not that results to anything, I don't know. But I will say this, and I've had this prediction for a while, fans are going to go ballistic over the return if he is traded, because he's not going to get what they think he is.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, it seems to me like this is, I mean, for the second year in a row, you know, we have our annual noted Sabre player asks to be traded. So I wonder who it's going to be next year. Hopefully not Jack Eichel, but I'll just drop that right there and see if someone hates on me for saying that. But I really do agree with you that the return for Rasmus Ristolainen, I mean, maybe you could talk someone into doing like a 1-for-1 where they trade, you know, I don't know, like if Winnipeg wants to trade for him. And I can't imagine you're going to get anything that jumps off the page at you. I mean, it's going to be tough. I mean, it can't be as bad as the Ryan O'Reilly trade. I say that now, but I don't think it can get much worse than that.
Yeah.
I mean, but then again, you've got a player who fancy stats wise is not good. I mean, statistically, like on the score sheet, you know, Ristolainen isn't terrible, I guess.
Right.
But fancy stats wise, he's horrible, and he's just like a black hole on the blue line. So I really agree with you. I think that the return might be underwhelming. It might be one of those kind of make your own trades where they say, you know, we'll give you young players, and if you can develop them, the trade might be great. And we'll give you some draft picks, and if you can draft the right players, hey, maybe the trade's great. But if those picks fail and the prospects don't pan out, it's on you. It's not on us. I think that what it might end up being.
Yeah, and one of the things that actually wouldn't surprise me is to see the Sabres pair someone from the prospect pool with Ristolainen to try and get a better return, because I really do feel that they're in the market for something more NHL ready. You know, I think if you're going to compare, maybe think about Yoki Haru, right? That would be like the least ready they would want a guy, I think, in return for Ristolainen, right? Like right on the fringe of breaking into the league full time. So it wouldn't surprise me if they kind of take someone from the depth, let's say, of their prospect ranks, or really take advantage of that systemic defensive logjam they have. Because even from a prospect standpoint, they have a ton of defensemen coming through. So that wouldn't shock me at all, especially a team like Winnipeg who can use more than one defenseman, and their pipeline isn't exactly good either. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. There's a lot of, you know, potential scenarios out there. Chad mentioned Detroit, who was a team I hadn't really thought about, you know, beyond that weird Anthony Mantha rumor that surfaced real early in the offseason that seemed way too good to be true. But yeah, it'll be cool to see what happens. I think no matter what, people are going to scream, this is the O'Reilly trade all over again. And the big difference I want people to realize is O'Reilly was a measurably good player across the board. Rasmus Ristolainen is not. He's not going to suddenly play 27 minutes a game for a different team and then be a Norris candidate. That's not what he is.
He might end up being better on a different team for a different situation, but yeah, Ryan O'Reilly, that was definitely a panic move, and I think we kind of all realized that at the time. Yeah. But obviously now with him going out and winning the Stanley Cup and looking like a god on the ice, I mean, that was
tough.
Yeah, that was an oops. That was a big old oops. But hey, it happens. It happens. Sometimes, you know, it's like when you date somebody, you know, and you break up with them and they go on to bigger and better things, and you're like, oh well, I screwed up. But this would be like This I don't even know what the equivalent of that would be. Like you break up with a girl who
you dated Jessica Biel in high school, and like
that's
you broke
fair.
up with her at graduation.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. That's a good one. That'll be a nice little quote to tweet out after the podcast. we're
By the way, out of context Anthony quotes are the thing this week apparently.
I love it. Yeah, I'm just gonna put out trading Ryan O'Reilly is like breaking up with Jessica Biel in high school at graduation. You look like an idiot. But speaking of Ristolainen, speaking of a roster crunch, it brings me over perfectly. It's like we've done this before, Yeah. To the second of the three big things this week. It's building the best roster. Now, what comes into play with a Ristolainen trade is money, cap money to be specific. Cap friendly right now projects Buffalo to have $0 available in cap space. The Sabres have approximately 975 NHL ready players on the roster right now. Jason Botterill, don't get me wrong, he has done an incredible job this offseason filling the team up with depth. I feel like this is the deepest Sabres roster that we've seen in at least a handful of years. I mean, goes out and makes a few trades, goes out and signs some decent players. I mean, Marcus Johansson, he goes out and acquires Jimmy Vesey. He goes out and gets Henry Jokiharju, which I'm very proud that I can pronounce that without looking it up. So there are a few things. I mean, they still have they've got a developing Victor Olofsson. They've got Connor Sherry, who apparently, from reading the tea leaves this offseason, is going to play a big role, a different role. And that's kind of what I want to ask you about is how do you see this shaking out? Because we saw Chad DiDomenicis, our humble leader, point out that he spoke with some, quote, SHL people, which I love how Chad does that, where he's like, I spoke to my people. I spoke to some people. I've got some connections behind the scenes. And I just imagine like Chad being home and his phone, his burner phone buzzes in it's like a flip phone. His burner flip phone buzzes in his pocket. His wife is like, oh, honey, I had a great day today. And Chad's like, hold on a second. And then Chad like walks into a dark closet and they're like, Chad, I've got some information. Victor Olofsson played right wing in Finland or in the SHL. I'm sorry, and he looked real good. Okay, bye. And they hang up on him, and they just cut the call off. He just walks back on. He's like, "I'm sorry, I apologize." But Victor Olofsson at right wing could potentially be a thing. Which, with that being said, you could. What do you think? Like, I'll just ask you right off the cuff here. A first line of Jeff Skinner, Jack Eichel, Victor Olofsson. Do you need me to give you a second?
No, I mean it's a great combination, right? But it goes back a little bit to, and Housley obviously was not a good tactician. Let's get that out of the way, right? But obviously didn't have a ton of talent up front. It goes back to, do you want lines that are specialized or do you want lines that are balanced? And there seems to be a debate there, and with how the roster is constructed now, rather, you could probably balance the top 9 a little better. And I don't know if piling Olofsson up there, maybe to start, right? Since it's his first full season, that would be a great way to get him going, right? And really maximize the value of one of your few entry-level contracts that you've got on the books. At the same time, though, you don't put Reinhart there. Let's get that out of the way, right? But if you put Olofsson and Reinhart with someone like Middlestat, well, then you're propelling that second line and really giving him the tools to be a great second line center. Yeah. So, maybe you shift Rodriguez or Sheary to that right wing one spot, right? But, maybe not Erod because you don't have a third line center then. So it's a little tough. And it almost a little bit depends on what they get back for Ristolainen and how that all works out, right? If he is traded, of course. But they have options, and that's something they really didn't have last year. It was either, okay, Reinhardt's on the first line, or you're putting somebody who doesn't belong up there, or maybe like a 35-year-old Jason Pominville who played well, but, you really only had enough to build like 2/3 of a top 6, which wasn't great, right? So yeah, they've got options. It'll be interesting to see what they do. But like you mentioned with Sheary, I mean, if he ends up at right wing 1, which is a distinct possibility, you could be looking at, him almost getting back to close to the production level he saw with Crosby a few years ago when he was, on his right side, which Ryan Wilson from Hockey Buzz mentioned that he was on Crosby's right side primarily that year, which is important because he's one of those guys who, with all the left wingers we have, is looking to be a possible transition. So Yeah, it'll be cool. A lot of options, but Olofsson up top is cool either way. I mean, it'll be a really dynamic line. It's just you got to think about what that does to the rest of your lineup.
So I'm looking over at Cap Friendly right now while you're chatting, and I'm just looking to see because they have roster projections, so you can go on and see. They apparently have some algorithm that they use that helps determine a team's depth chart and games that have been played, whatever. So right now, how they have it would be Skinner, Eichel, Olofsson, the first line, which again, I know a lot of it's like the Buffalo Bills syndrome almost, because the Sabres have been bad so long that you look at a guy like, you see Josh Allen tear it up in a preseason game, you're like, he's going to be a top 10 quarterback. The rest of the country's like, calm down. He's going to be mediocre at best. Okay, whatever. So we see Victor Olofsson, we see his shot. We see 4 points in 6 games last year. We see him tear up the AHL, and a lot of fans go, he's ready for the big time. Put him with Eichel and Skinner, because obviously, again, the Sabres, to be successful, I think, and I don't know if this is controversial or not, but to be successful, I think the Buffalo Sabres need to not have Skinner, Eichel, and Reinhart together. Because, again, you have to have a pool of assets. It's better, it's better to have them spread out than to have them all together, because, granted, that top line can't play the whole damn game. Right. And if you get that top line shut down, someone else has got to step up. So I like how they have Skinner, Eichel, Olofsson, their second line, which, again, right now they say it would be centered by Casey Middlestat just based on their algorithms, which it is what it is. We saw him struggle last year, but then again, the talent around him, they have Marcus Johansson on the left, Sam Reinhart on the right. Yes, I agree with you. Yikes is right for Casey Middlestat last year. What a welcome to the NHL. He struggled, but still put up 25 points at a young age, so I can't be too upset about that.
I was way less mad at him than his line mates.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at that, I mean, a guy like Marcus Johansson, there's ability to move him across left, center, right. He can play whatever position. Connor Sherry, same thing. He plays left or right. Jimmy Vesey, left or right. Evan Rodriguez can play left wing or center. So there's a lot of versatility now on this team where it's not like, so Sam Reinhart's going to miss a game because he's sick or something. So Kyle Oposo's got to come from the fourth line. And don't get me wrong, the role Kyle Oposo plays in the bottom six is great. But I don't think I want to see a game where Kyle Oposo has to play right wing with Skinner and Eichel. No. There's versatility where you can say, hey, look at Olofsson's struggling, so we're going to bump Sherry up to the top line, and it fits like a glove mostly. So the third line projected right now, Jimmy Vesey, Evan Rodriguez, Connor Sherry. I like something like that because there's a lot of, again, versatility. Sherry was not bad last year. I think when the problem with Connor Sherry, when he was acquired, people looked at that Crosby season where Sherry went off. But you have to remember who he was playing with. If Sherry plays with Skinner and Eichel all season, he'll probably have astronomical numbers. But for the role he played last year, wasn't terrible. And I think a lot of people dog on him for it. They're like, he only scored 34 points. It's like, okay, so you're telling me you're upset. Take away the name, take away everything else. Take away the cap it, take away the name, and just look at the stats. You're telling me you're mad that a guy who played time on ice, 1437 a game last year, 78 games, scored 14 goals in a bottom six role, and you're upset about that.
Whose primary line mates were a rookie Casey Middlestat and a really struggling Tage Thompson. You know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, you can't be upset with the year Connor Sherry had. I mean, you can, but you're wrong.
I like it. You're just like, you can be, but you're wrong. I like that.
But he makes $3 million. He's your quintessential middle six contributor on the wing. Like, he is what he is. And anyone who looks at his past and then compares that to who he played with in Pittsburgh versus who he played with last year and is somehow surprised or disappointed at his production from last season, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that's what you were going to get. That was probably one of your better case scenarios for him. He is what he is. He's a complimentary winger. There's nothing wrong with that. Teams have him all the time.
You know what I just realized?
Yeah.
Going back to the jersey talk, I'm going to kind of drop a hot take here real quick.
Do it.
I hope Vladimir Sobotka makes the roster opening night.
Oh, no.
Here's the deal. Hear me out. Because it goes back to an old story. I'll tell it really quickly. The day I bought a turd burger, I stopped at Dave & Adams and picked up a blank jersey for like $70, right? Okay. But it was deadline day. and I didn't know if the Sabres were going to make moves, and I was at the arena that day, so I could have easily I was covering for might have been Die by the Blade or another whatever. I was at the arena covering trade deadline, whatever. And so I could have gone to the store and picked up a jersey. I spent $70, bought the jersey, no harm, no foul. I'm happy I have it. It's in my basement. It's part of the collection, for better, for worse. Then, no joke, less than 2 hours later, the Sabres trade Brian Flynn. Go to the team store afterwards. They've got Brian Flynn jerseys on sale for like $80.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, so I could have got a really nice version, name, number, all that stuff. So here's my thought. To remember Vladimir Sobotka. Make the roster, get the jerseys produced. He gets traded or cut or demoted, and then bang, jerseys are on sale. There you go.
Oh,
I'm a businessman. I got a family to feed, okay?
Oh, man, right. Hey, look, I mean, I would rather have a blank jersey than
I just blacked out what happened.
Hey, listen, I'm going to tell you a quick story, if you don't mind. Take a second.
Sure.
So when you were explaining your Ristolainen jersey that you bought right when he was very early on, I did the exact same thing. So I have a white Risto jersey from his first or maybe his second full year, right? It was the first year he was paired with Zadorov for an entire season. So 2015, 14, whatever. So I take my wife to a game, right? And we were just I don't even think we were engaged at the time, right? So I take her to a game and she didn't have a Sabres jersey, right? So we go down to the store and she's like, well, this team's really bad. Who's going to be here for the foreseeable future? And I buy her a Nikita Zadorov jersey. 3 months later, he's traded in the O'Reilly deal.
Oh, my goodness.
So in my house, and she loved the Turdberger, which say what you will, but she really liked the yellow jersey, right? So that's what she wanted. So I have a Turdberger Zadorov in my home at the moment, as well as a white Risto and the piece de resistance from his first year, a Navy Ryan O'Reilly. So I have just the full gamut of useless jerseys, soon to be useless.
My favorite. My favorite is going to David Adams.
Yeah,
when they have the jersey sales. I picked up a Mikhail Grigorenko home Navy for like $20.
Wow,
love it. Yeah. I don't care. It's memories,
Yeah, my most long-term jersey right now is a blue slug that's got Tallinder on the back, which is the most respectable one I own.
I when I first became a hockey fan, I bought a goat Pat LaFontaine black goat Pat LaFontaine from a card shop for $30, right?
Damn.
At the time, I was big into collecting autographs, which I still here and there I'll dabble.
Yeah,
but I sent it to his foundation, got it autographed, so it's hanging up in my basement. I'm like, cool, great, but I want to wear the damn thing. I'm almost like, I wish I didn't get it signed because I really want to wear the thing all the time. Because now you go look for that jersey and it's like $250 on eBay,
right?
So, I kind of kick myself. I do, but I don't. But the one thing I kick myself for is I'm very much a Ville Leno guy, just because I understand the hatred and the bad hockey. Like I have Brayton Wilson hooked me up with an autographed Ville Leno hockey stick. He won from like a silent auction for $20 once. He just brought it over and said, "You need to have this." I said, "Okay, thanks. I appreciate it." So you can understand my plight when the Sabres bought him out. And I'm like, I'm going to go get a Ville Leno jersey. And then like right after they draft Sam Reinhart and he's like, I'm going to wear 23. It's like, damn you, Sam Reinhart. I wanted to buy it because they just pulled all the Ville Leno jerseys off and switched the patch on the back of it. I'm like, damn it. Damn. So anybody listening, if you have a Ville Leno 23 jersey out there, medium or large, hit me up at WolfBLTD and let's make a deal because I really want it.
That's awesome. I mean, that's the whole thing with getting a name on the uniform, right? I mean, especially with Buffalo Sports, it's going to be a crapshoot, right? I've got the same issue with Bills jerseys. I've got a Mario Williams and a Sean Merriman in my closet. It's just
I'm terrified. I bought a CJ Spiller. Remember the year that Spiller came out and was like a top 10 fantasy draft pick, right?
Yeah.
I drafted him like 4th overall in my league, which was stupid. But I bought a CJ Spiller jersey, right? So not only did I buy it for my size at the time, which I was like 215, 20 pounds at the time, I've since lost a decent amount of weight. So it doesn't fit me. It's like a dress on me at this point. It's still in mint condition, but it's a CJ Spiller jersey. And people are like, why don't you change the name on the back of it? Which is funny because I remember, and we're totally getting off track with jersey stories. I don't care. This is fun. I was in college. It was right after, I think Derek Roy was still on the team at the time. And then I went to the mall in Greece, and they had Vanek and Roy jerseys for some reason on sale for like $20, $25. Or it would maybe been a little more, but it was really cheap for the jersey. So I pick up a Roy jersey. He gets traded he gets dealt, and then they get Kane, so I switch it to a Kane jersey. Then Kane gets dealt, and then Eichel switches, which I'm not getting it switched. So I have a dual switch. Or it was Roy, and then I got switched to Ott, and then I got switched to Kane. I should get it switched to Eichel just to complete the full transition, just so I have a total jersey fail. But it's a Reebok jersey, so someone will call me out, and I'll have to subsequently fight them, which I don't want to have to do, but I'll do it. But yeah, it's the transition of jerseys. I try not to buy a lot of jerseys anymore because I'm big into the thought process of I'm a grown adult. I don't need to wear jerseys with kids younger than me. Clearly, I'm into that one right there. But no, I'm just waiting for. I was waiting for Eichel to be named captain. And then obviously now with the royal blue coming back, why would I buy a jersey now? That's what I'm waiting for.
Yeah, no, that's all legit. That's all legit. The last jersey I bought was the Winter Classic, and it's blank because, like you said, the wearing a child's name on the back of your jersey just seems weird. Like Rasmus Ristolainen is almost a decade younger than me, which is messed up for me to think about. But yeah, I mean, I get it. I can get the logic behind that. I also get getting a Rasmus Ristolainen jersey and you're 35. Like, that's cool too. Like, do you?
Yeah, man. I don't care if someone came up to me and they were like, "Hey, you're almost 28 years old. You shouldn't do that." I'll be like, "Hey, go
whatever.
Go crap in your hand and clap, okay?" That's what I would say to him, and then I would probably get beat up. Anyways,
yeah, nah.
I want to look at the defense quick. Speaking of Rasmus Ristolainen, I want to look at the defense quick because this is where the logjam happens.
Oh yeah.
I mean, looking right now. Hold on a second. My cat is chewing on a bag back here. That's annoying. She for some reason doesn't eat them. She just chews on them, and it's really annoying. So right now they have Dahlin and Ristolainen as the first pair, McCabe Montour as the second pair, Scandella Miller as the third pair. Now, you can kind of see where the depth is coming in, but then you can also kind of see where the flat tires are, that being Ristolainen and Scandella. But then you look at the non-roster players, Henry Jokiharju, you've got Will Borgen, Casey Nelson. Some have mentioned John Gilmore might be able to have a good camp and play his way in. And then also you have Bogosian and Pilot, who are likely going to be on IR to start the season.
I'm not our boy Matt Hunwick.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I didn't even get to the scratches yet. Matt Hunwick. Now the thing about this is where it gets a little crazy, Anthony. If my calculations and comprehension of the AHL CBA are correct, the Rochester Americans are currently at the limit for veteran players. So with that being said, if you scratch Wilson, Sobotka, Hunwick, any of those guys and try to send them to Rochester, you're just going to create kind of a really bad situation where you're rolling veterans in, rolling veterans out. So maybe they just say, look, we're going to pay you to not play hockey this season, because clearly Jason Botterill not comfortable with buyouts. He said it himself. Plus, I mean, when you look at the financials here, you've got Scott Wilson UFA after the year. You've got Matt Hunwick UFA after the year. You've got Vladimir Sobotka UFA after the year. So it's one of those situations where it seems like he just said, "Look, we're gonna take our medicine. We're gonna deal with it. We'll figure it out and go from there." But again, with that being said, the Buffalo Sabres' current projected cap hit as of today, with the roster the way it is set up, which it's a little cuckoo here, but we'll just say it's $82.559 million, which is over the cap limit right now. So again, something's got to give.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, you've got a dozen NHL, you have literally 12 NHL caliber, right? Players, either guys, and people will reply and say, Matt Hunwick's not NHL caliber. It's like, this is what I mean.
If Matt Hunwick, let's be honest. Sorry to cut you off, Anthony. If Matt Hunwick were a free agent, he probably would play for Ottawa. Let's just be real, because they don't have They don't have, and they would pay him like $4.5 million for a season so they could hit the cap floor. But a team like Ottawa would pick him up.
Yeah, but you get what I'm saying. So basically my rationale behind saying NHL caliber is they're on an NHL contract or they're a prospect, quote unquote, who could play in the NHL today, like I feel Will Borgen is, right? So you have 12 guys. That alone is a problem, right? But if you just look at guys on NHL contracts, you've got 11 of them. I mean, Borgen is the only, or I'm sorry, 10 if you count Jokiharju, right? So Borgen and Jokiharju are the only guys who could feasibly play in the AHL and not have to go through waivers. But you've got Casey Nelson, Zach Bogosian, Scandella, Hunwick, all these guys in this bottom end on NHL contracts. And Botterill said, I'm not afraid to waive guys on one-way contracts. It's like, yeah, but how? Because Rochester's at the limit. And people bring up, oh, well, okay, he can loan somebody like he did with Molson. Sure, okay, that's one guy. I mean, are you loaning 3 different dudes to make room for your best players in Jokiharju? Because he needs to play. He can't be in the AHL again. He's NHL ready. And, I've come to the, obvious conclusion that Borgen's going to spend another year in Rochester, which is fine. He's only 22. It's not the end of the world. But, something's got to give you. And I'm a little surprised that one of those guys, Scandella, Hunwick, whoever, even Nelson, who's probably the most tradable of them, hasn't been dealt just from the sheer fact that you're stopping your best players from dressing right now.
Yeah.
And something's got to give. They cannot go into the season with 12 defensemen. And, then you got the rumor of Gardner being on our radar, which I'm in favor of because I love Jake Gardner and I think he's a great player. And for something 3 years or less, given his injury history, I'd be cool with that. But yeah, you've got to trade as of right now. I would say you need to get rid of 2 of those guys. If you get Gardner in here, 3, you know what I'm saying? And how do you do that? I mean, Ristolainen trade would probably be a prerequisite to acquiring Gardner, but then you got to find a way to get rid of 2 of Scandella, Bogosian, Hunwick, Nelson, and that's not going to be the easiest thing to do. So I'm very curious to see how this all shakes out because right now you just can't go into the season this way.
Absolutely. Maybe your plan is to take a guy like Ristolainen, maybe Jake McCabe. We've heard him. I know I'm a big Jake McCabe guy, but I've seen the rumors. Maybe take a guy like Ristolainen, you trade a guy like McCabe as well. Yeah. Because I don't know if anyone's going to pick up Scandella at a $4 million ticket, even if it's one more year. I can't see that happening. You mentioned Casey Nelson. He's an attractive potential trade target. You may get stuck keeping a guy like Matt Hunwick for the season. I can't see someone taking on Bogosian just because of, again, you mentioned injury history. Bogosian had a pretty serious surgery over the offseason. And I can't imagine someone's willing to take a risk on him unless you take like a super late round draft pick and maybe keep some of the cash. But I mean, it's definitely kind of an embarrassment of riches in terms of they've got good young players and old bad players or bad old players.
Right.
So it's one of those situations where you're going to have to really finesse the situation. And maybe you could take, like I said, maybe take like a Jake McCabe and Casey Nelson and turn him into, I don't know, a second line center or something, or a top 6 player. I think I have a dog cat because I'm watching my cat over here in the chair next to me make a ton of noise. I look over and she's chasing her tail, running in circles in a small computer chair.
It's almost symbolic. It's metaphoric of what the Sabres are doing on defense. Just
what she's doing right now is like watching Rasmus Ristolainen play defense for 25 minutes a night. Like, no, that's your towel. That's your towel. That's no. Don't do that. That's you. That's not someone else. That's you.
Oh man.
When Ristolainen passes the puck to the other team, and you go, no. That's the other team. Pass it to the blue team, not the white team. No. Oh, damn it, you scored. A lot of another goal happened.
So, and I'm going to get a little tinfoil hatty here. Right?
I love it. Let's do it.
And this is a minor one for me because I've had some conspiracies. But this one I think is actually legitimate. So if you look at those, bad veterans, quote unquote, right?
Yep.
Now, from our perspective, 2 guys who are definitely into analytics, right? Understand why or how, I guess is the proper way to say it. Marco Scandella is a bad player. I have a tough time believing that you can't find a GM who would want to trade for him, who would take him, right? Who still sees him as a viable top 6 player. There are so many GMs who are still team grit, team size, and he brings that. He's a tough, he's a tough customer. He plays hard. He's just not very good. My conspiracy is and I don't even know if it's really a conspiracy, but whatever. I think the organization really likes him, and I don't think they ever intended on trading him. I really think that they want him in this last year. And I'm not saying they're going to extend him or anything, but I think they want Marco Scandella this season. For the seventh guy, your third pairing left-hander rather, whatever, it may be. I really do feel that they don't have any interest in trading him. I think he's something that they like, and that bothers me a little bit because, Botterill's done so many things. Like Yogi Haru is a great example, where to show he's kind of like a progressive thinker in terms of analytics and strategy, right? And Harry Kruger is a step in that direction to kind of confirm it. But there are just a couple guys, right? Sabotka, Scandella, who it seems he's very keen about having around, who kind of just go completely opposite of that narrative, right? Who are the antithesis of what he's supposed to be all about. So it's interesting, but yeah, he's probably the least likely guy, I think, to get traded. I think, like you said, McCabe has a better chance of being dealt than Scandella, and I don't necessarily resign myself to believe that it's because there's no market for Marco Scandella. I don't buy that. I think there is a team out there who would give you a late, draft pick for him.
Well, especially looking at the first year he had with the Sabres compared to last year. I mean, the talk coming into last season was, oh, hey, he's the guy that Jason Botterill was looking for, and he's going to take on a bigger role. And then he came out last season, and it's almost like he had an off season where he ran into the Men in Black, and they were like, hey, you're going to forget everything you know, because he came out looking completely lost. Something just wasn't right all last year with Marco Scandella. And maybe he comes back this year and he turns it back around and is fine, which would probably be best case scenario for the Sabres, because, again, we've seen in the National Hockey League, and in most sports actually, where a player could go out and put bad tape for an entire 82-game season. He could be god-awful, the worst player in the league statistically, right?
Yeah.
And there will be a GM out there that goes, you know what? I am really good at my job. I've got a great coaching staff. I got a whatever, young, old, whatever team. This guy, we can turn him around. And we can do
Eric Goodbranson.
We can make Marco Scandella again. And it's like, okay, see, and I think that's what separates the good GMs from the bad GMs.
Right.
When you see, it's kind of like the Henry Jokiharju deal with Alexander Nylander, where they're like, the Blackhawks came out and were like, hey, we see this kid, he's got talent, and we could get the talent out of him. And you say, okay, good luck.
Good luck with that.
And then he goes into the little development camp, and you see all the Blackhawks fans already going, why the hell did we trade Jokiharju for this joke? And you're just like, but hey, players will be good, players will be bad, but they're, again, end of the day, it's one of those situations where they go, it's like the Matt Hunwick deal. You knew how bad Matt Hunwick was coming in. You knew how hurt and just beat up his 34-year-old body is and was. And you just go, I just got to put the blinders on until he gets to UFA. Connor Sherry will be good enough that it will make the Matt Hunwick pain go away. And that's what you hope for. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But I'd be a bad GM because I would be like, no, someone would call me. You know what? Jason Botcher would call me and go, hey, buddy, we got Marco Scandella. We'll retain 50%. We'll give you, I don't know, we'll give you Scandella in a decent prospect. Give us like a third-round pick or something. And I'd be like, bro, have you looked at the fancy stats? He is dog crap. Is this a joke? Am I being punked? Where's Ashton Kutcher? I got to get off the line. I got another call. I'll talk to you later. And I probably would get fired. But that would be me. I just can't do it. I can't take this stuff seriously because, again, we look at the stuff and we see it. And I almost would love to, I don't know if I could handle the stress of being in a National Hockey League front office, but I would love to, be a fly on the wall to just see, is there a guy in the room that's going, hey, heads up, there's a big old flashing red light that said, this guy's bad, and you're going to trade a good player for him. Don't do that. And then he goes, no, I'm going to do it anyways because I like him. Or is it everyone's in agreement that, hey, this guy's bad, but we need him. We need a bad player. It's like, ugh.
Right.
Ugh. What do you do? When teams go out and go, look at, I think the Maple Leafs did it this offseason where they went out and acquired one of the defensemen they acquired, where everyone's like, that guy's really bad. And the Maple Leafs are like, yeah, but he's got
Cody
size.
Ceci.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. He's bad, but hey, he's got size and grit, and that's what we need. We need a tough guy. It's like, well, yeah, what about all the goals he's going to allow because he's really bad at what he does? And they're like, yeah, but he'll hit you real hard. It's like, oh, okay. Enjoy being eliminated in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, I think you nailed it in that regard. I think Botterill is almost a little bit of both of those types, right? He's midway between a Kyle Dubas and a Jim Rutherford, where if you look at like the VC acquisition is a great example. It's like, yeah, this guy scores a lot of, he can score a lot. It's like, yeah, but he's giving you every ounce and more of that back with just how terrible defensively he is, right? So you're going to shelter the crap out of him in an offensive heavy role, maybe, but then you're sacrificing balance, right? But then you look at, like I said, the Yoki Haru deal, you look at the Colin Miller deal, and it's like, oh, wow, okay, so he gets it. Like, he understands that you need, analytically strong players for cheap, let's say, because I think that Miller deal was a steal. But, like, then he goes and gets VC for a third-round pick. It's like, that's interesting.
I think with the VC thing, I think that's just, for me, that's just literally taking a shot in the dark saying, look, we know what you've done. We know what you can do. We know you're on an expiring contract. If you're worth it, prove it. And I feel like if they feel he can fit whatever, I was thinking more extreme than that. I'm thinking, I like to say for every Jeff Skinner deal because, he kind of did fleece the Carolina Hurricanes, but that was really the Hurricanes Ryan O'Reilly deal. So to even put it this way, for every Colin Miller deal, for every Henry Joki Haru deal that Botterill makes, there's a Tage Thompson right around the corner where he makes a deal for a guy and goes, no, I love this guy. He's going to be great someday, just not today, but you got to deal with it. And maybe in a different system, Tage Thompson will be fine. Maybe going down in Rochester and dominating the AHL like he did for the last part of last season, maybe that helps him. Maybe he comes back up and goes, you know what? I got it. I know exactly what I got to do. Or maybe Tage Thompson's a bottom six guy who you play 12 to 15 minutes a game and hope to God he scores you 10 goals in a season. We don't know that yet, but it seems like Botterill is, like you said, he's very much a Kyle Dubas as he is a Jim Rutherford, where he makes those smart trades that look really good on paper and sets his team up to say, look, I know you can do this. Like with Colin Miller, they know Colin Miller is going to be a guy where he hasn't played top 6 minutes, but he can play top 6 minutes and he projects well while playing top 6 minutes. But then last season, you've got Tage Thompson playing important minutes for a team. Granted, the Sabres were not good last year after their 10-game win streak, but still, you're exposing Tage Thompson to important minutes in a National Hockey League game where he does not look like he's ready for it. Not even the fact that he wasn't playing good or bad, the fact that he physically and mentally does not look like he can handle it.
Right.
But then they kept saying, well, he's got a lot of potential. Great. Put him in Rochester. Let him figure out that potential in Rochester because, but again,
Chris Ostrander said it.
Weird hills to die on.
Yeah, Chris Ostrander said it on Twitter, and he's absolutely right. If Tage Thompson would have started the year in Rochester last year, we'd be in love with him right now. If he'd have played the whole year in Rochester, we'd be in love with the guy. We'd think he's shoe in. We would hold him in the same light as Victor Olofsson, and it's true because he dominated down there. If we had never seen how terrible he was in a Sabres uniform last season, and he had just spent the whole year in the AHL, we'd love him right now. And it's interesting. You bring up kind of Botterill's, keen on. It almost seems like a change of scenery kind of thing. Like, yeah, but here we can make it work. Brandon Montour is another good example of that. And I like Brandon Montour a lot, more than most people, I would say, right? But if you look at, how he fared his last season, you could even argue 2 seasons in Anaheim, it wasn't great. And so, but you see how he was deployed before that, and you think, oh, the Sabres could probably match something like that, especially if you pair him with a Jake McCabe, right? So, Botterill, he's almost he's a little bit of a gambler in that respect, right? He sees guys who maybe aren't in the best situation. He thinks he can, his team is set up to put them in a position for that person to succeed. And I think he's probably doing the same thing with VC a little bit. And like you said, a prove it deal kind of thing for him, because he's a pending UFA, I think, at the end of the year.
Yes.
But yeah, it's interesting. He's very much he's a little bit Jekyll and Hyde in that regard, which makes him entertaining at the very least, because a lot of the deals he makes you don't really see coming, which is fun. But yeah,
it's nice too because with I just forgot his name for a second. I blanked out there. With Tim Murray, it was very much we're going to make these big deals. They never do. Where now he'll make a big deal. Jason Botterill will make a big deal, and he's not afraid he's not really afraid at all
Right.
to go out and make a deal, put himself out there. But then again, like I said, just weird hills of dying where he makes a deal and you're like, that's not a Jason Botterill move, but he just almost becomes obsessed with it, where he's like, I can fix this. We can make this better. And I don't know. I hope it doesn't become a downfall for him, but so far right now, he's made it work.
Yeah. So far.
Now looking at our last of three big things here, hot take time.
Yeah.
I want the hot takes are covered, I think, but we can throw a couple out there if necessary. But I want your safest prediction heading into the season.
Ooh, safest prediction. It's tough because, you know, with a team with so many question marks, I mean, what's a safe prediction, right? But, and you know, there's like a line you're towing to not make it sound hot takey. Safest prediction heading into the season is that everybody calms down about Casey Middlestat with better line mates. He's going to be fine. I think that's a pretty safe prediction.
I think that's fairly safe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, my safest prediction, if healthy and they stay together, I think Eichel and Skinner both score 30 goals.
Yeah, that's fair.
And the reason I mentioned
very safe prediction.
The reason I mentioned the hot takes are handled because I was going to have us spew some hot takes because we're both, if you follow either of us on Twitter, we're both good at the hot takes. Okay. If I may say so myself, but our star poster child, Rasmus Dahlin this week decided to unleash, I would say a moderately hot take when talking to the Associated Press. He says, quote, "We are going to be a winning team and be in the playoffs. I think everyone is putting more pressure on ourselves now and we're ready to go." The Sabres haven't been in the postseason in what feels like my entire lifetime. So what is Rasmus Dahlin seeing that we're not? Because, I mean, last year, they were headed towards the playoffs. They were the best team in the National Hockey League at one point in time, but then they folded like a wet cardboard box.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Is it the Ralph Kruger effect? Is it the everyone's a year older and a year wiser? I don't know, but Rasmus Dahlin has at least given us some bulletin board material in late August.
Yeah, it almost reminds me a little bit of like, oh man, what was it, like 2008 or 2009 when Dante Whitner was like, the Bills are going back to the playoffs, and they just calling himself Hittner. Yeah, Dante Hittner. And then
everyone on Twitter, everyone on the internet started calling him Dante Shitner. He was so bad.
I think at that point though, they'd just come off a 5-11 season, and Edwards was still the quarterback. But yeah, I think for Rasmus Dahlin, right, and I actually tried to kind of put myself in his perspective when he said this, because it seemed, he's kind of a mild-tempered guy, and like it just doesn't seem like the type of quote that would come from him. But his entire life, he's won. He's been on winning teams, right? Whether that be with Frölunda, the Swedish national team, he's won, right? And he's had his teams have had bad years, but it was never followed by another bad year. If you look at, the history of his teams, right? It almost feels like in his head, it's just like, well, we can't be bad 2 years in a row. That's not how this works. Like, this is my team. So I hope that he feels that way and he's going to, and he thinks he can put the team on his back. I think that's fantastic. I think that's a bold prediction, Rasmus, because as of right now, you've got incompletions up front, you've got a logjam on the back end, and you've got two goalies who, I mean, it's tough to say at 34 years old, Carter Hutton has something to prove, quote unquote, but you've got Linus Ullmark, who very much has something to prove, neither of which played particularly well last year. So you guys better come with it. I don't know. I hope he's right, but yeah, it's a hot take.
Judging by the amount of money that Linus Ullmark asked for in arbitration, he definitely thinks he has something to prove.
Yeah. Or maybe doesn't. Yeah. But
I was going to say, I was thinking maybe he doesn't, but I was going to say if he's asking for that much money, he definitely has something to prove. He may not think it, but everybody else thinks
right,
it. When that number came across the board, everyone was like, "I'm sorry, is that a typo?" No, he wants that much money.
Yeah, that was like Jake McCabe. What was his at? Like $4 million? It's like, are you nuts, dude? You haven't played a full year in like 2 seasons.
I mean, I get you got to kind of bargain, and you got to
you got to go high,
go low. But like
a team's never going to say, "Can we pay you more?"
That's like me walking into my job tomorrow saying, "Hey, I want to raise. I want to make $110,000 a year." That's like, buddy, are you high? I got a hot take. I think there's a hot take we can agree on. Speaking of Rasmus Ristolainen, he's better than Miro Heiskanen, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. We just had to get that on the podcast.
That's a freezing cold take because it's true.
It is very true. But the internet the Dallas Stars fan gets so freaking mad.
All 7 of them get really upset.
There's your take right there. All 7 Dallas Stars fan. Hey, I want to mention before we jump off the podcast here, our look ahead brought to you by IndyCard Media. Visit facebook.com/IndyCard Media for all your graphic needs. Training camp, early September. Ristolainen watch continues. First preseason game Monday, September 16th versus the Penguins at Pegula. I can't even say his name right now. My mouth hurts so bad. Pegula Ice Arena. First regular season game, Thursday, October 3rd at Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh. It's coming. The season's almost here. I don't know if you wanted to say anything about the season coming or not.
It's so funny. I thought I lost you. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm clicking on my laptop like, it's going to be exciting. I mean, they should be improved at least. We'll see if they're playoff contenders like Mr. Dahlin seems to believe. But, I mean, anytime hockey season is coming, good team or bad team, it's a good time of year.
It'll be fun, at least for the first 30 games before we all tune it out. But with that being said, I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD. Joining me again, much appreciated, Anthony Sciandra. It's at Sciandra Sports. I'll make sure to tweet this out, and we'll get everyone following each other, and we'll talk more Buffalo Sabres coming up here soon, either when Ristolainen is traded or when training camp starts. And much appreciated, Anthony, for joining the podcast today.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being on, and we got to keep doing what we got to do to fill out the rest of this offseason. But 3 more weeks to go.
Hey, hopefully we can all get together and have like a Die by the Blade cast on the Sabrecast. We were supposed to have Chad today, but apparently he's going to Marineland, so that sounds like a pretty dope afternoon if you're asking me.
Yeah, I think that's where he meets his Swedish sources.
That's got to be. It's got to be
it. That's the drop zone for information.
They ride on that big old Tower of Doom thing that goes up in the air and drops you.
Love it. Yeah.
As they're screaming, he's like, they just yell out things, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm gonna write it down as I'm being yeeted into the sky.
Yeeted.
Exactly. I'm gonna buy him a little flip phone, burner flip phone.
Yeah, like Virgin Mobile.
Exactly.
Is that even a thing anymore?
I think so. We'll get him like a straight talk phone from Walmart or something.
Love it. But yeah, we need to do a crossover episode pretty soon here, man.
We'll do it. With that being said, this has been the Sabrecast, and I think go Sabres. I'm not sure. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll talk soon. Bye.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.
What's up, Rock Soldiers? This is Robbie Vegas coming at you from the All Bets Are Off podcast. If you are into horror movies, the paranormal, professional wrestling, or music, this is the place for you. We're bringing you the latest and greatest interviews in all of the above: music, horror, and of course, professional wrestling. So tune in on the Gear Network. Check out All Bets Are Off. Rate us, like us, subscribe to us, leave us your comments, tell us what you think, and we'll catch you soon on the All Bets Are Off podcast, dropping every Sunday at noon.